We're the custom grip maker, core custom shop.
All right, I'd like to call the Tuesday, September 14th, 2021 discussion meeting to order. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Mackler, can you please have the roll call?
Dr. Anderson. Here. Mr. Caligiuri.
Here.
Mr. Colson.
Here.
Mr. Devine.
Here.
Mr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Kolar.
Here.
Mrs. Sputnik. Here. Mr. Tomarello will not be present this evening. Ms. Wetmore. Here. Ms. Statro, our student representative. Here.
All right, just a quick note. It'll be a little lengthy of a note before we start our meeting tonight from Mr. Devine and I. Mike has liked us to share his apologies for not being able to attend in person for tonight. Ironically, he's in quarantine protocol. For tonight's meetings, we recognize that many of you are here to speak on the topic of masking. We both honor and respect your right to share your points of view regarding your beliefs. Tonight's agenda will combine agenda and non-agenda items to both appear at the beginning of the meeting, as masking and health and safety plan is not really on our agenda for tonight. In an effort to honor your time, we have moved non-agenda items to the front of the meeting, so you have the opportunity to address the board without sitting and waiting to share your views, and can spend time with your families if you need to leave. As a reminder, the purpose of citizens' comments is to hear from you. The board is to listen and weigh your comments, but the purpose is really not to engage in discussion. There are a few items that we wanted to bring to your attention before we open the floor to citizens' comments. First, please make no mistake, and this is coming from Mike as an individual board member, he agrees with those of you who want a choice for masking. It's extremely disheartening to him that, that we were told that the decision would fall on the school district, but after 2 weeks, that decision making power was taken away from the district. You have every right to voice your displeasure. Late last week, the board was given information from the Department of Education indicating, among other things, that any district going against the order would be subject to severe penalties, which include each of the board members and administrators being held personally accountable. The memo goes on further to state that we would not be protected under the district's solicitor. The 9 of us, whether you agree with us or not, do this as volunteer position. We are not willing to risk our personal finances or assets over the masking. Our superintendents, who are commissioned officers, are recognized and given appointments or commissions by the state, could also potentially lose their appointments or commissions and therefore their livelihood. Again, something that they are not willing to risk, which is following a lawfully issued order. We stand behind your right to voice your disagreement, but this might not be the greatest venue to seek change, unfortunately, that you wish to see. As we mentioned at the last meeting, we will keep this meeting civil and in order. Please refrain from harsh language or from directing your comments at any one school board member or administrator. Please address your comments to me directly, as I will now be the presiding chair since Mike isn't here, Mr. Devine isn't here. As you entered the library, you should have noticed a sign respectfully requesting you to follow a required masking order and to maintain masking the entirety of the meeting. We're just reminding you again of that now. As difficult as it would be to do so, if anybody has to be reminded a third time, we will have to retire to executive session until the situation has been resolved, and you will be removed from the meeting and charges of disorderly conduct will be made. If this happens a second time, we will adjourn the meeting and reconvene our regularly scheduled meeting on September 28th. We will listen to everything you have to say tonight, but these ground rules must be followed. Lastly, well, I don't have to mention the last one because now I will be presiding over the meeting since unfortunately Mike cannot be here tonight. So we will continue on with the meeting. The board met in an executive session on September 14th, 2021 to discuss matters of litigation, safety, personnel, and real estate. I'll welcome next citizens' comments on agenda and non-agenda items, and Ms. Macro will give you some guidance on that.
If you will be making citizens' comments on agenda or non-agenda items, we ask that you step up one at a time in an orderly fashion. Everyone will be given a 3-minute time to speak. We ask that you please state your name and your residence within Plum, and that you keep your comments as an individual as opposed to speaking on behalf of others. Please direct your comments directly to our presiding officer, and you will be given a 30-second warning. I'll also have a clock up on the board so that you can see how much time you have left remaining to speak. After you step away from the mic after your time, I ask that you just step over to the table and write your name on the sheet so that I can spell it properly whenever I go to make the minutes. If we could have our first person step up to the microphone for your comments.
Hello, my name is Amy Bocherry, 309 Aberdeen Drive. I'm going to start by acknowledging Dr. Walsh. Last time I spoke in front of you, I brought up my concerns with the praise for the SAP program, which I do believe is good, but the issues that I personally face that I know others are facing. Dr. Walsh heard it. He was troubled by it. He said, let me dig into it. We have been in communication. I appreciate you hearing my concerns. I appreciate you hearing others' concerns who may not be as verbal and as vocal as I am. So thank you for at least hearing that there is a gap that needed to be recognized. Next, I want to talk to you guys about the quarantine issue. I contacted the Allegheny County Health Department today. Sat on hold for 45 minutes after I was bounced around 5 times. I spoke with a Dr. Anita Sharma. She is part of the K-12 school team in regards to quarantine. When I asked about quarantines with masks, she says that students do not need to quarantine from a classroom if masks are worn at all times and appropriately. However, masks on the bus do not count. If you are exposed to COVID-19 on the bus, you have to quarantine. I don't know why masks don't work on the bus, and all of a sudden they work in a classroom. When I asked her that question, she told me she couldn't answer that. She said that maybe it was because that there was more supervision in a classroom from the teacher, to which I said it has nothing to do with ventilation. She goes, oh yeah, that too. Okay, great. You're making decisions for my kids, but you can't answer. All right, so there's that. When I asked about the need about vaccinated persons versus unvaccinated persons needing to quarantine and not quarantine, I was told that she doesn't have an answer for that, that sometimes we have to, and I quote, blindly follow the guidelines and not ask questions. I stopped her. I said, hold up, back up. You just want me to blindly follow and not ask questions? And she goes, yes, ma'am. So this is where I'm struggling with all of this. This is not how scientific process works. You don't just blindly follow. Science, you question over and over. These are the people that are making the decisions for our kids in this borough who knows nothing about the kids in our borough. But she can't answer simple, basic questions. I was told just to follow the CDC guidelines. So, just to inform you guys, per Dr. Anita Sharma of the Allegheny County Health Department, if they are exposed to COVID-19 in the classroom and masks are being worn, which they are, no student, regardless of their vaccination status, needs to quarantine. Finally, when I asked her about the need for antibody testing being accepted versus a positive PCR test, because the state accepts it, but one of our nurses here said they don't accept it. The Allegheny County Health Department said if there is an antibody test within the last 90 days, they will accept it as a need to not need to quarantine.
Next for comments, please.
Hi, my name's Spiridon Vassilaudis. Most people know me as Donnie because I don't go by Spiridon. As this is not going to be a question and answer session, I want to let you guys know of a few things that have happened in the first 2 weeks of school in O'Block Middle School. Second day of class, my 13-year-old was in gym class. She doesn't wear a mask, didn't wear a mask at that time. The gym teachers, under whose direction I don't know, split the classes up into 2 sections, those who were masked and those who were not masked. Immediately, the kids who were masked were allowed to leave. Following that, all the children were asked what their vaccine status was. Teachers are writing it down. I want to know what happened with that information. Secondly, whose authority was it that the kids could be segregated into masks and no masks? Will you start to put people in the back of the bus now? You guys remember that? You're teachers. Well, you're not teachers, but you work in the school board. You guys remember what happened putting people in the back of the bus? Is that what's going to happen now? I'll let that go. But now you know there is segregation and interrogation going on in your classes. Whether you guys know it or not, your teachers are doing it. And they're doing it to my kids. Secondly, the first full week of school on a Monday, my daughter was contact traced. Since you guys won't answer, since I already know it's not a question and answer time, I'm going to assume that 4 days is not the correct protocol as to let the families know that your kid was contact traced. Yes or no? I'm going to say yes. So it's not the proper thing. So my girl got contact traced on a Monday, did not get a phone call till Friday at 7:30. A full week she went to school. Following that, she was also contact traced again on Friday. That same week that she shouldn't have been in because she was contact traced on a Monday. That makes no sense. If you guys were truly trying to keep the COVID stuff in check, your time frames will be much more truncated than they are now. Because if it takes 4 days to let families know that their kid was contact traced, what about their younger or older siblings? What about their parents? That's not stopping anything. That's 4 days of a gestation period to grow the virus and to spread it. I happen to be married to a scientist. I think I might know a little bit about this topic. But with 30 seconds left, I'm going to leave you guys with, there's terrible things happening in the school. I don't know if you guys care about it, but segregating children and questioning unaccompanied minors about medical issues is not a proper thing to do.
Sir, if I could have you come fill your name out so I spell it properly in the minutes. Thank you. Next to speak.
Hi, Dory Scott, Center Hill Road. Once, and I don't know if you can answer this for me, when a child is quarantined, are they allowed to do flex option? Right, they can? So my question is, and I know that a lot of parents don't want their kids to flex up, but my daughter desperately wants to flex up. She did fabulous last year, made high honor roll. She does not want to come to school anymore. She's already missed 2 days of school. She's not happy. Why can't we give them that option if it's already happening with other kids? Why can't they choose? Thank you.
Next to speak, please. And just another reminder, just stop by and put your name on the clipboard when you're finished speaking. Okay, that closes citizens' comments. Back to Mr. Caligiuri.
Stuck in before the end. Hi, Justin Johovic, Leanne Court. There was a lot of confusion last time as to the vote that happened and the debate and deliberations and things like that. So I know that there's the executive session. My hope is that there's some means, I would say for all of you, to kind of alleviate any potential subterfuge that's going on for the community, to really heal the community and communicate what was deliberated, who was there, who wasn't there, anyone, even school board members, the solicitor, lawyers, etc., about the masking and the safety plan, everything involving that. It's hard to breathe this thing. I know there's the Office of Open Records, there's the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act, there's availability for that, there's reasons for all those things like that, not to deliberate, I'm certainly not a lawyer in any way. But if there's any means that you guys could communicate that, I know in the minutes, at least I was looking for what was posted today, it only said the total vote, 6-3. So I think that eliminating any confusion for that, specifically, it would give you all the opportunity to present, whether it be in some other forum or conversation, that would be more of a dialogue. Because I know with most of you, when we're able to communicate with you, that eliminates the confusion, and in many cases, I believe would be against the contempt. So I think that the Sunshine Act is actually really good branding. Maybe for the last speaker, we could take some of that, because the flex learning is really not flexible. It's kind of inflexible right now, but anyways, back to the point. The Sunshine Act, shine a light. I'm not going to start singing Bob Marley, but shine a light in the darkness. Eliminate that confusion, eliminate that distrust, heal the community. Talk and share about what you did, why you did it. What was the roll call? Who voted which way? Let's talk about it. Let's put it all out in the open and have a discussion about it. You're asking all of us to be proper and handle ourselves well. We're asking for the same in return. Just be transparent, more transparent. We can talk to some of you, maybe others we don't get communication with. So I don't know if that's a possibility to explore that, if that's something that any of the members could raise and bring up. Is there an avenue that you guys can communicate what was deliberated, who voted which way, why, and explain it, not in a negative way, but just explain so that we can understand. And like you said, you guys are volunteers and all, so we can understand that. And we could support, we could debate, we could share information, not only in this session, but maybe in another forum that would be more advantageous. Is that something that's on options? Is that something that's available?
Dave, can you explain what the executive session is and why it's confidential and the reason why we do things and stuff?
Sure. The legislator has outlined certain topics that should be talked about in executive session. And for the most part, the reason you talk about things in executive session is they're confidential matters. Things that if you talked about in public, it would some way imperil the district. So it's hard to list all those possible things. But that's why the very specific executive session exceptions to the Sunshine Law exist. And it is a very specific list. It's not extensive.
Would this constitute being more of a public matter, though, in the sense that, it's not safety from a security perspective, which I can understand that you wouldn't want to disclose anybody for safety, the police, how the security mechanisms at the school, but this is being more of a health matter that's very much public, because the absence of that transparency creates that subterfuge, which is also part of the Sunshine Act.
Mr. Jehovich, your time is up.
But thanks. I thought that even under the Sunshine Act, there's the ability to discuss if they deliberate and discuss. But thank you. I appreciate that. Good. You want to answer that?
Thank you for your comments. Let us consider that further, and if we can get back to you personally and certainly to the community as a whole, we will do that. We have your name,
Yep.
and if you can share all of your contact
Sure.
information, that would be helpful.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry for the address. I just came from practice with the kids. So, anyway, board members,
Sir,
thank
can
you for your
state your name,
time.
please?
Yes, my name is Mike Watson. I am a Plum Borough resident. I have 4 children in the Plum Borough School District. I just wanted to first say thank you for your time. I know this isn't easy, especially with things that have been going on the last year and a half. There's a lot of conflicting information. I think as parents and community members, no one's really sure of what is right, what is wrong, what is here, what is there. My question is though, is the legality of mask, the legality of not letting parents choose what is best for their children. How we are the sole caretakers, the sole guardians of our children, minor children, yet we have an authority, not a legislative branch, telling us what we have to do for our children who are not sick, who, are healthy individuals, for something that at their age ranges, under the age of 18, is less than 1% chance fatal. Less than 1% chance of, 35 million Americans under the age of 18. That 1% and all this, and all the confusion, I just don't understand. What is the legality? What is the legality of, the Pennsylvania Constitution? Section 1, inherent rights of mankind. Section 2, political powers. What political powers does a school board have? None. They are agents of the state. You guys are a board. You're not legislators. Secretary of Health is not a legislator. There is no law. There is no mandate. Mandate is not a law, but there is no law saying we have to wear masks. So with my time, I just want to ask you if you could vote on two things, and I think these two things would help settle, the district from future lawsuits. One would be a mask exemption form. Allow the parents to choose. Allow the parents to choose what's best for their children. Let parents choose what's best for the health of their children. The school district is not assuming liability by mandating masks. There has been no such assumption of liability form signed. There has been no consent from the parents given.
30 seconds.
So I'm asking you, will you vote for a mask exemption form and allow parents to choose? And then I think that makes both sides happy. So I guess that's my request, my question. Would the board vote on that?
This isn't a voting meeting.
I'm just asking if they would vote on it, So
I'll vote no mask.
would we, vote for the parents' choice? So,
All right, that concludes citizens' comments. Mr. Caligiuri.
Thank you. On to personnel, that's me. I have no formal report except for to thank all of our staff for their hard work this early on. Does the administration have anything that they would like to share? Move on to student achievement and activities. Dr. Anderson is the lead board member.
Yep, first we have the non-public service agreements per the federal programs coordinator. These are just annual agreements. If you guys had a chance to look over them, does anybody have any concerns with moving them forward?
I have some questions. Title I in particular. Our schools, are our elementary schools just across the board Title I?
We followed a consolidated app, so yes, Title I services are received at Center and Pivot. It's just a funding source, yes.
So what were we last year? Were we Title
The same,
I?
the
We
same,
were Title I last year.
yes. And the agreement in front of you is for the students that live in the district,
Yep.
that they attend Holy Family and Our Lady of Sorrow, that money would go to support them in regards to reading interventions and students at the Pittsburgh Diocese.
Okay. No, I understand that part. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, do we have 5 to move that forward? Okay. And then letter B is just grants and donations that are awarded. I continue to be impressed with the money that our teachers can bring in and staff can bring in for projects that they have in their classroom. And then letter C is just the recognition of the Plum Music Boosters having the affiliation with the Plum Borough School District and the paperwork that needs to go with that. Any questions or concerns moving that forward? Okay, that's it.
Safe and support of schools, Mr. Hill and Mr. Tomarello, lead board liaisons. Mr. Hill, you'll represent tonight.
Perfect timing. Letter A was to, my screen just went blank. Letter A was just to renew, looks like some software and support for some camera licenses. Do I have 5 to move that forward or any questions? Do you have anything?
I would just add that what's unique about the Gentech is the platform which allows our systems to communicate. Is typically we bring 5-6 year contracts to the board. The contract expired, we elected to bring a 1-year contract because there's conversation about security, safety and security being E-ratable in the future, and it would be significant savings to the district. So we believe a 1-year contract would be prudent moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, any other questions? All right, do we have 5?
Yes.
All right. Carry on.
All right, we'll move on to budget and finance. Mr. Tomarello is not able to be with us tonight. Would someone from the administration like to pick up this topic, please?
Sure, I can review those items.
Thank you.
We have our normal budgetary reports. If anyone does have any questions on those reports, you can always feel free to contact me in the office and I can answer any questions there. We have a contract, a 3-year extension with a natural gas consortium. This will provide just a little bit of savings to the district. We participate in this consortium historically, and there's about a $2,000 savings that will be realized over annual savings by participating in this renewal. The commercial activity guides was developed by Dr. Highland. I don't know if you want an opportunity to speak to that, but I'm very excited that our superintendent is focused on alternative revenue sources. So that's an awesome thing. Dr. Highland?
Thanks, Mr. Manzer. So 3.5 of our balanced scorecard discusses that we set annual goals, and it's a goal that has been increasing since 2019 to bring in alternative revenue to the district. The goal for this year, for the 2021 school year, is between $200,000 and $300,000. So one of the things that we wanted to do is try and see if we could leverage our facilities to try and bring in some alternative revenues that would go directly back to the kids. And so what you see before you is our first attempt at a commercial activities guide. The idea would be is that we would go out and solicit with businesses not only in Plum but in Monroeville and surrounding areas to see if they would like to advertise, sponsor, and just be part of the overall growth of our program. As an example, some of the items that are below on the agenda tonight, we have some donations for signage within the district. As an example, last year we had the back of the scoreboard that was just, basically it was just an ugly back of a scoreboard. And we wanted to try and kind of beautify our facilities, but also provide opportunities for our local businesses to advertise hopefully in a classy and a tasteful way. And I think we were able to accomplish that with that scoreboard with the back of it. So for those people that are looking at it, you'll see that we have 3 sponsors. And that's just one example, and that pretty much paid for the program and should help give us additional revenue for years to come. And so the guide that you have before you, it had been in your capsule multiple times before, and I know you've had an opportunity to look at it. I just wanted to have your feedback if you thought it was appropriate, if there's anything you thought we should add to it. If not, we would move it forward for board action to be able to use. And the idea would be is that we would send this out to all the businesses along with our school calendar that Mrs. Macro put together, and I've never publicly given her credit for that calendar, which I thought is beautiful. Great job, Mrs. Macro. And so we would give them a calendar to see what the Plum Borough School District is all about, and particularly the kids. The kids are focused in that calendar. It's the focus of what we do as kids. And so hopefully we would be able to spend some money to make some money as well. So I'm open to the board's feedback on that commercial guide if you have any.
I went through it. I think it's a great idea to ease the tax burden, get some easy revenue out of it.
Aside from those donations, that's all on the budget and finance list.
Is there going to be like a separate fund for this money? How's that? How do we?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
Sure. This is general fund money. There will be potentially a budget developed for this line item, and we'll look at these reoccurring revenues, and if we anticipate that they'll be reoccurring, we can budget appropriately for them. If they're not anticipated reoccurring, then they can be one-time funds.
All right.
Okay, well, I have some questions about it as well. So for instance, like when you look at the various list, right? Hold on, I opened it and then I closed it, and I closed the wrong tab, so sorry about that. For example, like the sports stuff, you kind of know what you're doing with that. But when you look down at what you, like for instance, the auditorium, was it just to put your name on the auditorium, or is there a project affiliated with that you would want to raise the funds for? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, if you look at the application process, the folks can actually
Right, I agree with
ask
that.
where they would like it to go. There could be as much as you could buy a particular seat, and you could have your name on that
Right,
seat.
but my point is, I mean, are we looking at long-term projects? Does any of this align with any of the long-term goals and projects within the facilities that may, A, be easier to raise funds for? You might have an alumni, for instance, that comes in and says, well, I loved when I was in the band or did the musicals, and so there's something specific we're raising the funds for, so maybe they get that particular seat or whatever their name is, but the project might tie some folks to wanting to actually participate rather than just put money into the general fund.
Sure.
And it might not equal, I get what we're trying to do, so it might not fully equal, but there might be a project attached that generates an interest.
Sure, that's one of the things that's in the application itself, is for folks to be able to give anecdotal information as to where they think they would like their money to go. Obviously, if it doesn't fit into what we're trying to do from a strategic perspective, we would certainly share that with those. But I will tell you, if we have people that are willing to give back to our students, we will do our best to try and make sure that we fit where it is they want that money to go.
Okay.
Dr. Holland, did you want to review those two donations more specifically as well?
Yeah, so for example, for those folks that drive around the back of the school, you'll see the plum script that's up there, and eventually that's going to be lighted so those people that are coming in the evening will be able to see it. But we had three advertisements on there. Dad's is a local establishment. The Dice Law Firm has also contributed, so thank you to the Dice. But also we have Signage Fitness that also donated $5,000 to us. So those are people that are giving back to our school, and so we wanted to recognize those. There are 3 more spots on that scoreboard. What I like most about it is we took something that was an eyesore, we turned it into something that promotes our school district and promotes pride, and we made money off it. So, and we also helped our businesses, our local businesses, basically advertise in a very tasteful way. So I think it was a win-win-win all around, and I think the more we can do that in a very tasteful way, the better. I think our kids end up getting more resources, which is the ultimate goal of this.
Do we have a majority to move these forward? All right. On to facilities and operations. Mr. Colson, lead board liaison.
I think we have a presentation coming.
We do. Do you want me to take it, Mr. Colson? Okay. At last board meeting, we asked the board their thoughts on opening the facilities to the community. Obviously, we said at that time, but we had to see where we were with COVID, and we all know that that is a ever-changing dynamic that we have to deal with. However, there is, we got the distinct impression from the board that you wanted to have our facilities open. Between that meeting and now, one of the things that we had to move to was 6 feet of distance in the cafeteria so that we could cut down on the amount of contact tracing. When we do that, that creates a burden on our custodial staff to set up and break down the cafeteria because the gyms, because we have to have our kids eat not only in the cafeteria, but they also have to eat in the gym to get that 6 feet. So that had a little bit of an impact on our presentation. I charged Dr. Walsh with putting together a team of folks to look at this and make some recommendations to the board. And those folks that were on that on the team, they're not necessarily all here today. We asked them we told them that they could participate remotely, and so Dr. Walsh gets to carry the water and lead the presentation tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Highland. I can go to the next slide, Mrs. Macro. First of all, with the directive that we received in regard to taking a view at our facilities, we looked always at how it ties into our strategic goals. One is we want to make sure that our schools are safe. And two, we want to satisfy our customers and community. The core team members, as you can see, was myself, Dr. Highland, Mr. Manzer, but we also looked at our directors of facilities, athletics, and we wanted a secondary and elementary administrator as part of this team, and Mr. Hanna, our supervisor of school police, with an eye on security with our recommendations. This specifically goes to policy 707 in regards that the board allows our facilities to be available, but it also does note as long as it does not interfere with the educational programs of the school. And as Dr. Highland said, because of appropriate distance in the classroom of 3 feet and the cafeteria of 6 feet, we want to cut down on contact tracing. We want to make sure that we're setting the conditions for everybody to be successful. But there are ripples to that decision in regards to facilities. Next slide, Ms. Macro. The first thing we looked at was the available space. Our gymnasiums, wrestling rooms, swimming pools, cafeteria, library, auditorium, outdoor facilities, and concession stands. And as you can see, as indicated, it is listed on this chart what spaces are open. Our recommendation, and at the end, but I'll jump to the chase, is that we want to open our facilities to our school-sponsored groups. We want our PTAs back in our buildings. We want our clubs to be up and operational, and we want to start utilizing the space that we currently have available. But to be frank, we don't have the space available like we have in the past. So we need to be mindful of that. We can go to the next slide. So with recommending that we open it to our school-sponsored groups, we also learned through this process that there's going to be some limited space that external groups could still use: the gym, the auditorium, the wrestling room, the swimming pool. We wanted to make those available, but it would be on a limited basis. And they would have to go through the application process, and everybody that comes into our school would need to follow our health and safety plan, the governor's order, and be aware of the frequently asked questions. And finally, is just our recommendation, is that we want to open up our buildings. Not only do we want to open up our buildings, we would like to open them up as soon as tomorrow to let our building administrators know that our facilities are back, are open, and our groups are welcome to come back in. So that's our recommendation. I do have the committee online if there's any questions.
Do we actually have to vote on this?
No, this is just an informational.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
My concern is, there's an immediate concern if we had to vote on this, was just that volleyball's having a tournament, and we were trying to figure out how to let them use the concession stand outside, to put people outside.
And you saw the concession stand is now open, so.
But good, as long as it's, as long
So we
as
have
we vote on
policies.
it, I'm good then.
We have 707 that says we're allowed to do it.
Yeah.
I have the authority to go ahead and do it, but I want to make sure we have the backing of the board to say, go ahead. But we also wanted your input with regard to what it is we're proposing, what we're recommending.
So this is just for our internal clubs, internal groups, PTO.
If there is room for external and the space is available, they can go through the application process, and we would consider that request.
Dr. Walsh, could you explain to the board why there may be limited space with regard to our teams using the facilities?
Well, a good example, and we wanted to get this out in public as soon as possible, because as short as I'm standing here, there's already groups planning for basketball. And there's many external groups that would utilize our facilities. But at Center Elementary and at Pivot Elementary, those spaces are limited because our students are using them as cafeteria. And we got to make sure that we have that 6 feet of space in order to make sure that our kids won't have to go through the contact tracing process.
I'm fine internal. I don't think we should open up external because I think it puts other things at risk and also puts our staff at an increased level of stress to get everything set up for them.
Yeah.
But I would be good with the our internal clubs or PTOs because that's what the taxpayers will pay for.
And I would just share with you that that's why Dr. Highland charged this team to take a close look at it. If you look at the group that had their eyes on this, we would not be recommending opening up the swimming pool The wrestling room, the external groups, and we didn't believe we could manage it through facilities or through our process of keeping our school safe.
Yeah, I have no doubt you guys can
Yeah.
do it. If we want to add that to the list of things that you guys and the staff is already doing, I would rather designate our school and for our clubs and our PTOs.
I think anything we can open, we should open. It's a public
Yeah.
facility. So if
And
we
I'd
can
say I think
support
it's
it,
a-
it needs to be open.
Yeah, and it's a great way for our students to do things outside of the classroom as well. And I think what he's saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's why those K-4 gyms are closed. We're not going to make them set up and tear down. And I think here it's gym 2 that is closed, right?
Correct.
And that's not going to be set up and tear, so you're not.
Only the main gym is open here.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
not increasing set up and tear down of any of those gymnasiums. Wrestling room won't have anybody using it. Swimming pool, it's not. Do you know what I mean? It's not being used.
I get it, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's my preference.
Yeah. And
I'm
I would just add, Mr. Hill, that
Add this too, Mr. Hill, and
part,
I appreciate your vote.
I understand your vote, where you're going with that. I would tell you, we would not be hesitant to come back to you and say, listen, I don't think we can do this. I think maybe we bit off more than we can chew, and I think we need to not have this open. But I think what Dr. Walsh was indicating is Mr. Walsh was involved in the process. The elementary principals were involved in the process. And what we're also kind of balancing is we know that there was kids, I know this was part of the discussion, kids for a year and a half have not necessarily been able to participate in those facilities and be in their gyms or in their cafeterias with their friends. And if they can do it like they do it in school, and we can have some extracurricular activities, we want to try and shoot for it if we can, to try and get back to normal as quickly as we can. But if we weren't able to do it, we would be the first ones to come back to you and say, hey, we probably did more than we thought we should.
and safety protocols are part of the application process, that everybody would need to identify that they are aware of the protocols when you're utilizing our facilities. And not only if we get a report from a site manager, but our security vestibule, we're gonna monitor, and if people are not compliant with our rules, their permit will be revoked.
Who's responsible for cleanup and the activities that come after that?
It would be the facilities department.
It's all in our policy.
Yeah.
And so basically, if you're not a Umbro School District group, it goes back to the fee schedule and all the other things.
Exactly, yes.
And it's clear in there that if we decide to shut our facilities down, you're out of luck.
Yeah. But we wanted to be fair, Ms.
Right,
Stepniak,
sure.
that we have limited space, and let the external groups and community be aware of that.
Right.
But we are trying to open as best we can to utilize the space we have available.
Can I just ask for clarification in the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
The not applicables of the swimming pool and the wrestling room and the concessions and I'm seeing it, forget it.
Yeah,
It's
they're-
not applicable because they're not at those.
They're not at those
Got it.
locations,
Okay,
yes,
my
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
I'll learn how to read a table later.
As I shared with you, our goal would be to inform facilities, move forward with our administrative team, and let our parent groups know that they're welcome to come back into our buildings and have meetings. Okay? Thank you.
That's much appreciated, thank you.
That's funny.
Yes,
Thanks, Dr. Walsh. Letter B, we have a disposal of obsolete ELA textbooks and resources rule. Anybody have a discussion about obsolete textbooks? That's why they're obsolete.
These cannot be used again, so when we find them in the dumpster, they are obsolete and no longer can be used, right?
We could not give those away. We've asked.
Yeah.
And because of COVID, they're not accepting donations. We had a vendor come out and said there's of zero value.
Zero value.
I appreciate you saying that, so when people take pictures and post them, we have tried everywhere for people to take these books and no one will do it. Okay, that's all for me, thank you.
Eastern Area School, this is Stephanie.
Mike, can I just ask real quick, do we have an update on the workout rooms at the high school and O Block?
We do. So we have, the HVAC work is almost completed in the cardio room. We're good with the the decorative decals in the cardio room, we are waiting on the equipment right now. And it's at the end of the week, I think, Dr. Walsh, end of the week?
End of the month
End of the
because
month.
of supply chain shortages and getting the equipment in, but it's staged and we're waiting for the equipment.
And so folks know, that was ordered at the end of the May meeting when that was approved, and we are still waiting for that cardio equipment. With regard to the fitness room, again, the floor is down, the decals are up, we're waiting, the mirrors are in, we're just waiting for the equipment. So that's the update. And we wish we would have had that ready for the beginning of school for the kids, and, but we'll get it there. We're getting there as soon as we get the equipment.
Are we going to have since you brought it up, are we going to have sort of a schedule on how this is accessible to all students, not just sports teams? I want to make sure that, for instance, some kids, that might be their sole, thing that they have available to them. They don't belong to the Y or a local gym or have gym equipment at home. And maybe working out alongside some of the sports teams would be a good incentive or, a positive. So I want to make sure that all students have access to that, and it's not just thought process of these sports teams have these facilities and then maybe you have access to it after rather than after school or something.
The answer to that is yes, we do have supplementals in the contract for that, but we also have some ideas for some long-range plans with regard to potentially a strength and conditioning coach that may be able to get in there, that not only work with our teams, because we do want our teams to use it, but we also want those kids that may not be affiliated with a team also working on it, especially now with the issues that we have, that I think all school districts have, that kids dealing with the pandemic and the mental issues that are going along with that. We want them to get physically active. So yeah, we do have supplementals for that. We are waiting for the equipment to get in, to see how it works, to see how it's going to be best utilized, to see how much our teams are actually using it, and see how we can parlay that into, and so you also know too, it's also going to be used for physical education during the day as well, not only at the high school, but also at O Block as well. So we are looking at ways. The long-term goal is to eventually come to the board and have some sort of strength and conditioning coach that would be able to work with kids on an individual basis.
Mom, Dad, I'm staying after school today to work out in the gym. I want those students to be able to have access to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you. So Eastern Area School.
I have nothing, but I will have an update at the end of the month.
Thank you. Forbes Road, Mr. Hill, lead board liaison.
I shall also have an update by the end of the month. Maybe we'll have our meeting coming up.
Intergovernmental, Mrs. Wetmore, lead board liaison.
Nothing to discuss tonight, maybe.
Legislative, Mrs. Stepney, back to you, lead board liaison.
I have nothing for tonight, except we have the PSBA officer. My recommendation for vice president would be Allison Mathis from North Hills School District. And I believe everybody else, I believe everybody else was choose up to 3. Yes, that's right, I did. Jennifer Davidson would be my recommendation, and this is just my recommendation, I don't know who else read these. And Beth Ann Ziegler, as well as Jamie Lynn, and I don't know how to say Jamie's last name. No, I don't either. So, but those would be my 3 recommendations, and from past communications with this organization.
And each of the board members will vote on their own to the PSBA, is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
But like I said, when it comes to having a leadership position in PSBA, we always try to, as a group, we've all decided if we have somebody from Western Pennsylvania, it gives us the ability to have that extra voice sitting on that board, and it's important.
Policy, Mr. Kohler.
We won't be bringing any policies forward for this month's meeting.
Thank you. Diversity, Mrs. Wetmore, lead board liaison.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Upcoming public meetings, there will be an action meeting September 28th, 2021, 7 o'clock. It'll be here in the library. Without any objections, we will adjourn the meeting.
Can I ask one question about diversity? I'm sorry, you guys just rolled. I don't know what our number of students are that could not participate and their parents can't participate in open house on Thursday. due to it being Yom Kippur. I'm just concerned that how we get that information, the parents may have missed an open house to those folks. Because that is a pretty important holiday, and I just want to make sure, again, I don't know the breakdown of that, but I want to make sure that parents that can't participate due to a religious purpose, specifically that day, how are we going to get that information?
I will reach out to the individual, because each individual building has their own autonomy to run their open house, but I will reach out to each one of those and ask them and report back to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just want to make
No
sure it
worries.
was being addressed. Thank you.
Yeah, without objection, we'll adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion, but I gotta do that, huh?
We need to have a
No,
motion.
we do not.
Have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion anyway.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.